The lavender balloons bobbed against a perfect blue sky as I walked toward my best friend's baby shower. 20 years of friendship with Colette had taught me her tells the slight curve of her lips when she was hiding something, or the practiced tilt of her head when she wanted attention. But today, something felt different, even wrong. My husband Bennett sensed it too. His doctor's eyes tracked movements others missed, and when his hand gripped mine, he whispered, "We have to go now." I should have listened, but instead I brushed him off, making excuses for Colette as I always did. It wasn't until we were halfway home that he uttered 3 simple words that would shatter the foundation of my oldest friendship words I refused to believe. What I didn't know then was how deep the deception went, or what it would cost me to finally see the truth about the person I thought I knew better than anyone else. I pulled into the circular driveway of Colette's suburban home, gravel crunching under our tires. The house was draped in soft lavender and cream-colored streamers, with clusters of balloons dancing in the gentle spring breeze. Cars lined both sides of the street more than I expected, for what Colette had described as an intimate celebration. "Looks like half the town showed up," Bennett said beside me, adjusting his collar. He'd been unusually quiet during our drive over, his hands gripping the steering wheel just a little too tight. "You know Colette," I replied. "She's never done anything halfway." My husband nodded, but something in his expression seemed off. Bennett was usually the social butterfly between us, the one who made friends with strangers in checkout lines and remembered the names of our neighbors' pets. "Today," I asked, placing my hand on his forearm, concern lacing my voice, "are you feeling okay?" "Fine," he said, offering a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. "Just tired from that double shift." I let it slide. Bennett's work at the hospital often left him drained, and I didn't want to start Colette's baby shower with an argument. We walked up the manicured path to the front door, my arms laden with a gift basket filled with organic cotton onesies, children's books, and a handmade blanket I'd spent the last 3 months knitting. The door swung open before we could knock. "Sarah!" Colette shrieked, her arms outstretched. My best friend stood before me, radiant in a floor-length pale pink dress that flowed around her body. Her blonde hair was styled in loose waves, a flower crown perched atop her head. Her makeup was impeccable, highlighting her bright blue eyes and rosy cheeks. She looked like something out of a glossy pregnancy magazine, the kind where models with fake bumps sell the dream of maternal bliss. "You look incredible," I said, handing Bennett the gift basket so I could embrace her. Colette held me at arm's length, her body angled slightly away from mine. "Don't squish the little one," she laughed, patting her stomach. I noticed she wore the bump proudly, but something about how she touched it seemed practiced, almost theatrical. "We wouldn't want that," I smiled, trying to catch Bennett's eye, but he was scanning the room behind Colette, his gaze methodical. The entryway opened to a transformed living space. Lavender floral arrangements adorned every surface. A professional photographer circulated through the crowd, capturing candid moments. In the corner, a bartender mixed mocktails and mimosas at a marble-topped bar. A neon sign blazed on the far wall. "It's a girl toe" in cursive pink letters. "This is... wow," I breathed, taking it all in. "Colette, this must have cost..." "Don't worry about that," she cut me off, waving dismissively. "Most of it was donated. People have been so generous." Bennett's eyebrows rose slightly, but he remained silent. Alaric, Colette's husband of 3 years, approached with 2 glasses of champagne. He was tall and angular, with dark hair that was starting to recede at the temples. He handed one to Bennett. "For the non-pregnant among us," he joked, his British accent clipping the words. "Congratulations," Bennett said, clinking glasses. "First-time fatherhood, big change coming." "The biggest," Alaric agreed, though his eyes darted briefly to Colette. Something passed between them, a look I couldn't decipher. "Sarah!" a familiar voice called from across the room. Opal pushed through the crowd, her curly hair bouncing with each step. Behind her trailed Sierra and Gage, my old high school circle complete once again. "It's been forever," Sierra exclaimed, pulling me into a hug. Her willowy frame was draped in a bohemian dress, paint stains visible under her fingernails, despite her obvious attempt to scrub them clean. 6 months is hardly forever, I laughed. "In artist time, it's an eternity," she countered. Opal stood back, observing us with the analytical gaze she'd developed since becoming a therapist. "How's the counseling center treating you, Sarah?" "Busy as always," I replied. "You know how it is. Everyone needs someone to talk to." Gage lingered at the edge of our circle, his hands in his pockets. Colette's younger brother had grown into his features since high school, no longer the gangly boy who'd slip notes into my locker when he thought no one was watching. "Nice to see you," he said, eyes lingering on mine a beat too long. "You too," I replied, suddenly aware of Bennett watching our interaction. Colette clapped her hands. "Now that Sarah's here, I can show you all the nursery mock-up the designer finished the renderings yesterday." She led us upstairs, chattering about organic paint and sustainably harvested timber. Bennett fell into step beside me, his fingers brushing against mine. "Notice anything?" he whispered. "Like what?" I asked, keeping my voice low. He shook his head. Never mind, later. The second bedroom had been transformed into a vision in soft pinks and creams. A crystal chandelier hung over a hand-carved crib. The walls featured a hand-painted mural of a whimsical forest, complete with deer and rabbits. A plush armchair sat in the corner beside a bookshelf, already filled with children's classics. It's stunning, Sierra gasped. Absolutely, I agreed, though a question nagged at me. This level of luxury seemed at odds with Colette and Alaric's usual taste and their budget. Alaric worked in publishing, and Colette ran a small nonprofit. This room alone probably cost more than they made in 3 months. Most of it was donated by vendors who support the Maternal Health Initiative, Colette explained, as if reading my thoughts. They want to showcase their products. That's convenient, Opal remarked, her therapist's skepticism showing through. Colette's smile tightened almost imperceptibly. It's networking the best kind. As the others admired the custom wallpaper, I noticed Bennett standing in the doorway, his phone out. He was taking pictures of the room, zooming in on specific details. When he caught me watching, he quickly pocketed the device. Downstairs, the party was in full swing. Games were played, advice cards filled out, and gifts piled high on a table that seemed to groan under their weight. Through it all, Bennett remained on the periphery, watching, texting his usual social charm, nowhere to be found. During a lull in the festivities, I cornered him by the drinks table. What's going on with you today? Nothing, he said, but his eyes continued to scan the room. Just tired. You keep saying that, but you're acting weird. You've barely spoken to anyone. He sighed, running a hand through his dark hair. I'm sorry, I just noticed some things that don't add up. Before I could press further, the photographer called for a group photo. We arranged ourselves around Colette, who positioned herself front and center, hands cradling her belly like it contained the most precious treasure in the world. As the photographer counted down, Bennett stepped back, his attention caught by something or someone across the room. His eyes narrowed, and he pulled out his phone again, typing rapidly. I followed his gaze to a man standing near the gift table, middle-aged with salt and pepper hair and glasses. He watched Colette with an expression I couldn't quite place. Concern, confusion. Who's that? I whispered to Sierra. She shrugged. Maybe one of Alaric's colleagues or a family friend? The photo session ended, and Colette's mother, Patricia Whitman, took center stage. She was a formidable woman, her blonde hair cut in a severe bob that framed her surgically enhanced features. When Colette told me she was finally expecting, Patricia began, glass raised. I thought of all the silence we've endured, all the waiting. This baby girl is truly a blessing after long silence. The room erupted in applause. Beside me, Bennett stiffened. We have to go, he said abruptly, his voice low but urgent. Now what, we can't just leave in the middle of... His fingers wrapped around my wrist, firm but not painful. His eyes bore into mine with an intensity that startled me. Trust me, we need to go. Bennett, this is my best friend's baby shower. I can't just... I'll explain in this car, he cut me off. Please. Something in his tone, not panic but absolute certainty, made me relent. I made quick apologies to Colette, blaming a hospital emergency. She pouted, but accepted my excuse, extracting a promise that we'd have lunch soon. As we drove away, the lavender balloons still visible in the rearview mirror, I turned to Bennett. This better be good. His knuckles were white on the steering wheel. It's not good, Sarah. It's not good at all. The silence in our car felt physical, like a third passenger wedged between us. Bennett drove with mechanical precision, eyes fixed on the road ahead. Outside, spring sunshine painted everything in cheerful colors that seemed to mock the growing tension. Are you going to tell me what that was about? I finally asked, breaking the silence. Or should I just guess? Bennett's jaw tightened. Give me a minute to figure out how to say this. Say what? That you embarrassed me in front of everyone I care about. That you pulled me out of my best friend's baby shower like we were fleeing a crime scene. He didn't respond, just flicked on his turn signal with unnecessary force as we merged onto the highway. Bennett, I tried again, softer this time. Whatever it is, just tell me. He exhaled slowly, his shoulders dropping. Not until we're halfway home. I need you focused, not distracted by traffic. You're scaring me. I'm sorry. He reached across the console to squeeze my hand. That's not my intention. We drove in silence for another 15 minutes, the suburban landscape giving way to open countryside. When we passed the midpoint marker, a rusty billboard advertising a long-closed diner, Bennett finally spoke. Colette's not pregnant. I stared at him, waiting for the punchline. When none came, I laughed a short, incredulous sound. What are you talking about? We were just at her baby shower. I saw her belly. You saw something, he agreed, his voice clinically detached. But it wasn't a 7-month pregnancy. That's insane. I twisted in my seat to face him fully. I've known Colette since we were 6 years old. I think I'd know if she was faking a pregnancy. Would you? His eyes flicked to mine briefly before returning to the road. When was the last time you actually touched her stomach? The question landed like a slap. I opened my mouth to answer, then closed it again. I pictured every interaction with Colette over the past months, the announcement dinner, the gender reveal party, the shopping trips for maternity clothes. Each time there had been hugs, but always at angles, always brief, always controlled. She doesn't like people touching her belly, I said defensively. Lots of pregnant women don't. That's convenient? Stop it, I snapped. This is ridiculous. You can't possibly think Colette is faking this. What would be the point? Bennett sighed. The man at the gift table, that was Dr. Nathaniel Harmon. He's an obstetrician at my hospital. So maybe he's her doctor. He's not. He works exclusively at Mercy General. Colette goes to St. Elizabeth's Medical Center. You told me that yourself when she first announced. I frowned. Maybe she switched doctors. Sarah. Bennett's voice was gentle now. He recognized me. We made eye contact and he looked concerned. Deeply concerned about what I don't know exactly, but after that I overheard Alaric on the phone in the hallway near the bathroom. Bennett's hands tightened on the wheel again. He said, and I quote, "She's starting to believe it herself. We need to speed this up." A chill ran through me. That could have been about anything. Then explain the medical reports I saw in Colette's home office last week when we were helping them move furniture. You were snooping through their papers? I was aghast. They were out on the desk. Blood test panels, Sarah, not consistent with pregnancy. You had no right. I'm a doctor. I know what I saw. Anger flared inside me, hot and defensive. So what? You think this is all some elaborate hoax that my best friend is walking around with a fake bump pretending to be pregnant? Do you hear how crazy that sounds? More than crazy, tool, he agreed. Possibly pathological. This is, I sputtered, searching for words. This is jealousy. You've always been weird about my friendship with Colette. Bennett's face hardened. That's not fair, isn't it? Ever since we got married, you've made comments about how much time I spend with her, how she calls too late, how she always needs something. Because she's manipulative. His voice rose for the first time. She uses you, Sarah. She always has. Pull over. My voice was ice. What pull over? Bennett guided the car onto the shoulder, putting it in park, but leaving the engine running. We sat in charged silence, the soft hum of the air conditioning the only sound. I don't want to fight, he said finally. I'm telling you what I observed because I'm worried for you, for her even. I turned to stare out the window, fighting back tears. You're wrong about this. I hope I am. His voice was soft now. But think about it. Really think. When did she announce January? That's 7 months ago. Has her body changed the way a pregnant woman's would? Not just her stomach, her face, her ankles, her overall weight. I thought about Colette at the shower, her slender arms, her defined jawline, her slim ankles in those strappy heels. Pregnant women retained water. They gained weight in their faces. Their bodies changed beyond just their bellies. She's always been thin, I said weakly. She's not drinking alcohol because of doctor's orders, not morning sickness. Have you ever heard her mention morning sickness? Food aversions, back pain. I hadn't. Colette's pregnancy had been by her own account practically magical. No symptoms, no complaints. And that nursery Bennett continued. Everything's still in packaging. Nothing assembled almost like it's for show. Stop! I covered my ears childishly. Just stop! He fell silent, waiting. Slowly, unwillingly, I let myself consider his observations. The careful way Colette positioned herself in photos. How she never seemed to need bathroom breaks despite supposedly carrying a 7-month fetus pressing on her bladder. The way she changed the subject whenever I asked specific questions about her prenatal care. Why? I whispered, dropping my hands. Why would anyone do this? I don't know, Bennett admitted. Attention, money. That shower wasn't cheap and she said most things were donated. What does that even mean? The extravagance of the event replayed in my mind. The professional catering, the designer decorations, the expensive gifts. Colette's nonprofit work focused on maternal health in underserved communities. Could there be a connection? I need to know for sure, I said finally. Bennett nodded, putting the car back in drive. So do I. As we pulled back onto the highway, doubt crept in like a fog, obscuring the certainties I'd built my life around. I'd known Colette longer than I'd known anyone outside my family. We'd shared everything: first periods, first kisses, college anxieties, wedding jitters. She was the sister I never had. But there had always been something performative about Colette, something that needed an audience. In high school, her heartbreaks were always public, her achievements always broadcast. Even her proposal from Alaric had been elaborately staged for maximum social media impact. I keep thinking about what her mother said, Bennett mused, breaking into my thoughts. A blessing after long silence. What's silence? Colette's never mentioned fertility issues. No, I agreed. She hasn't. My phone buzzed with a text. Colette, miss you already? Lunch Tuesday. Just us girls, so much to tell you. I stared at the message, seeing it with new eyes. So much to tell me. What hadn't she already shared about this pregnancy? The rest of the drive passed in contemplative silence. By the time we pulled into our driveway, the sun was setting, painting the sky in shades of orange and pink. "What now?" I asked as Bennett cut the engine. He turned to me, his face grave in the fading light. "That's up to you. She's your friend." I nodded slowly. "I need to find out the truth." "Whatever that is," he agreed. "We'll face it together." That night, I lay awake long after Bennett's breathing had deepened into sleep. My mind replayed every interaction with Colette over the past 7 months, searching for clues I might have missed, the excitement in her voice. When she called with the news, the way she'd declined my offer to accompany her to appointments, the vague answers about due dates and doctor's recommendations. By morning, I had made a decision. I needed to see for myself. The day after the shower dawned bright and clear. Bennett had an early shift at the hospital, leaving me alone with my tumultuous thoughts. I paced our kitchen coffee growing cold in my mug, replaying his accusations in my mind. Could it be true? Could my best friend, the person I trusted most in the world besides my husband, be living such an elaborate lie? I picked up my phone and scrolled through recent pictures of Colette. In each one, she was radiant hands cradling her bump smile, dazzling. But looking closer, I noticed patterns. She always wore flowing dresses or oversized tops, always stood at an angle, always kept some distance between herself and others. Before I could second-guess myself, I texted her, "Left my shawl at your place yesterday. Okay if I swing by to grab it?" Her response came almost immediately. "So sorry, not home now. Doctor appointment in the city. Mairead is there, though. She can let you in." Perfect. Colette's younger sister was less guarded, less polished. If anyone would slip up and reveal something, it would be Mairead. I grabbed my purse and keys, fabricating a pale blue shawl to find once I got there. The drive to Colette's house felt longer than usual, each mile marker a countdown to a confrontation I wasn't sure I was ready for. Colette and Alaric lived in a renovated Victorian on the edge of town, a wedding gift from her parents that they'd spent years restoring. As I pulled into the driveway, I noticed Alaric's car was gone too. Just Mairead's beat-up Civic sat in the carport. I knocked, heart pounding against my ribs like it wanted to escape. Footsteps approached and the door swung open to reveal Mairead, her hair pulled into a messy bun, wearing sweatpants and one of Colette's old college t-shirts. "Sarah." Her surprise seemed genuine. "What are you doing here?" "I left my shawl yesterday," I explained, forcing a smile. "Colette said you'd let me in to look for it." "Oh." Mairead blinked, then stepped aside. "Sure, come in. It's probably in the living room with all the shower stuff." I stepped into the house, immediately struck by how different it felt from yesterday. Without the crowd and decorations, it seemed hollow, almost staged. "Sorry about the mess," Mairead said, gesturing to a half-eaten breakfast on the coffee table. "I wasn't expecting company." "No worries." I scanned the room, pretending to look for my non-existent shawl. "The shower was beautiful. You all must have worked so hard." "Mostly the event planner," Mairead shrugged. "Colette had very specific requirements." "I'm sure she did." I moved toward the dining room, where a bottle of red wine sat open on the table beside a plate with half a steak. "Late breakfast." Mairead flushed. "Alaric's from last night." "Steak and red wine?" I raised an eyebrow. "Bit heavy for Colette these days, isn't it?" "Oh, she didn't—" Mairead stopped herself, eyes widening slightly. "I mean, she had something else, pregnancy-friendly." I nodded, filing away the slip. "Where is Colette today? She mentioned a doctor's appointment." Mairead shifted uncomfortably. "Yeah, she went to a clinic out of town. Special monitoring or something?" Her voice wavered on the last words. "Is everything okay with the baby?" I pressed, watching her reaction carefully. "Phoenix, everything's fine." The answer came too quickly. "Just routine." "That's good to hear." I wandered toward the stairs. "Mind if I check upstairs for my shawl? Maybe it ended up in the nursery somehow." "I'll come with you," Mairead said a little too eagerly. The nursery looked exactly as it had yesterday, pristine, untouched. Now that I was looking with new eyes, I noticed what Bennett had pointed out. None of the boxes were opened. The crib parts were still wrapped in plastic. The mattress was still in its packaging. Even the baby clothes in the dresser still had tags attached. "It's like a showroom," I murmured, running my fingers along the changing table. "Colette wants everything perfect before she opens anything," Mairead explained. "You know how she is." "I thought I did," I said softly. As Mairead turned to check the closet for my shawl, I noticed something behind the changing table, a small journal wedged as if it had fallen and been forgotten. When Mairead wasn't looking, I slipped it into my purse. "Not here," Mairead announced. "Maybe downstairs in the coat closet." We returned downstairs, and I made a show of checking various spots. "I should get going," I said finally. "I probably left it in the car after all." "I'll tell Colette you stopped by," Mairead offered, walking me to the door. "Please do." I paused on the threshold. Murad, is everything really okay with Colette? She seems different lately. Something flickered across the younger woman's face, a fleeting shadow of fear. She's going through a lot, she said carefully. But she'll be fine, she always is. If she needs anything, you'll be the first to know. Murad finished, but her smile didn't reach her eyes. I was halfway to my car when I heard voices from the side of the house. Instinctively, I ducked behind a large hydrangea bush. Colette's voice, clear and sharp, carried through the open kitchen window. I don't care what he thinks, this will be over after the donation clears. My blood ran cold. Donation. What donation? I crept closer, trying to hear the rest of the conversation, but Colette had lowered her voice. I could make out only fragments, not backing out now, and too much invested. The sound of footsteps on gravel sent me scrambling back to my car. I slid into the driver's seat just as Colette rounded the corner of the house, phone pressed to her ear, face set in an expression I'd never seen before, calculating cold. I started the engine and pulled away, heart hammering. In my rearview mirror, I saw Colette watching my car, her free hand not on her belly, but hanging loosely at her side. Once safely down the street, I pulled over and called Bennett. You might be right, I said when he answered, my voice shaking. Something's definitely off. What happened? His concern was palpable even through the phone. I went to her house, found a journal, heard her talking about a donation clearing, saying it would be over after that. Bennett was silent for a moment. Did you see any medical paperwork, anything concrete? No, but Muradea was acting weird and there was a red wine and steak on the table. And the nursery? Nothing's been opened, Bennett. It's all still in packaging. Keep the journal, he advised. We might need it as evidence. Evidence of what? I asked, suddenly afraid of the answer. What exactly do you think is happening here? Bennett's voice was grim. Best case scenario, some kind of delusional episode. Worst case, fraud. After we hung up, I sat in my car staring at Colette's journal in my lap. Opening it felt like a betrayal, but not opening it felt like enabling whatever was happening. I took a deep breath and flipped to the first page. My dearest daughter, though you're not yet in my arms, you're already in my heart. Each day I wait for you is a day closer to holding you. They don't understand. They say it's not possible, that I should accept reality. But mothers know. Mothers always know. Your room is ready. Your family is waiting. All we need now is you. With eternal love, your mother. The entry was dated 3 years ago. I flipped through more pages, each one a letter to this phantom daughter. Some were hopeful, some angry, some desperate. The most recent, dated just 2 weeks ago, sent chills down my spine. My miracle girl. They've all finally accepted your coming. The donations are flowing in. Soon we'll have everything we need to bring you home properly. Just a little longer now, and no one will be able to take you away from me again. Forever yours, Mommy. What had happened 3 years ago? Colette and Alaric had only been married for a few months then. Had there been a pregnancy no one knew about, a loss? My phone buzzed with a text from Colette. Saw you driving away. Did you find your shawl? I froze, unsure how to respond. Before I could decide, another text came through Sarah. I need to tell you something. Something I haven't told anyone else. Can we meet tomorrow? Somewhere private. I've been keeping a secret for too long, and you're the only one I trust with the truth. I stared at the screen, a mixture of dread and vindication washing over me. Whatever was happening with Colette, I was about to find out. With trembling fingers, I replied, Of course. Name the time and place. Her response came immediately. The cabin at Lake Morrison. Noon. Come alone. The cabin, her family's summer place, isolated and private. The perfect spot for a confession, or a confrontation. I started the car again, Colette's journal secure in my purse, and drove home with the weight of 20 years of friendship pressing down on me. By the time I pulled into our driveway, I had made up my mind. I would meet Colette tomorrow, hear her out, and then decide what to do. Bennett was waiting for me in the kitchen, still in his scrubs from his hospital shift. One look at my face told him everything. You found something, he said. It wasn't a question. A lot of somethings. I sank into a chair at our kitchen table. And tomorrow, I'm going to find out the rest. I showed him the journal, watched his expression darken as he read. When he finished, he closed it carefully and set it down between us like a bomb that might detonate. Whatever you're walking into tomorrow, he said quietly, be careful. If she's been living this delusion for 3 years, she's still Colette, I insisted, though I wasn't sure anymore what that meant. She's still my friend. Bennett reached across the table and took my hand. People who are drowning will pull down anyone trying to save them, he said. Remember that. That night, I left Bennett a voicemail before falling into a troubled sleep. I think you're right about everything. I'm scared of what I'll find out tomorrow. In my dreams, I stood in Colette's perfect nursery watching as she rocked an empty blanket singing lullabies to no one at all. The drive to Lake Morrison took 40 minutes each mile, heightening my anxiety. I'd barely slept turning over possibilities in my mind until dawn broke. Bennett had offered to come with me, but this was something I needed to face alone. Whatever this turned out to be, the lake was peaceful in the late spring sunshine, its surface rippling with gentle waves. The Whitman family cabin sat nestled among tall pines on the eastern shore, its weathered wood and stone chimney a fixture of my childhood memories. Colette and I had spent countless summer days here swimming, gossiping, dreaming of our futures. As I pulled up the gravel driveway, I spotted Colette's white SUV parked under the carport. My stomach clenched. There was no turning back now. I approached the cabin slowly, taking in details I'd missed on previous visits. The porch swing where we'd shared secrets now looked abandoned, its chains rusted. Flower pots sat empty. The welcome mat was faded beyond recognition. Before I could knock, the door swung open. Colette stood there, dressed in a simple white sundress. No baby bump, no pregnancy glow. Just Colette, her face bare of makeup, her blue eyes rimmed with red. "You knew," she said, simply, not a question. I nodded, unable to find words. She stepped back, gesturing me inside. I should have realized Bennett would figure it out. Doctors notice things. The cabin's interior was dim shafts of sunlight cutting through half-closed blinds. Colette moved to the worn leather couch and sat curling her legs beneath her like she used to do in college. "Do you hate me?" she asked, her voice small and laced with a surprising vulnerability. I remained standing, unsure of the script for this moment. "I don't hate you, I don't understand." She laughed, a brittle sound. "That makes two of us." I watched as she poured water from a pitcher on the coffee table, her hands steady. No wine today, no performance. "I wasn't always lying." She began staring into her glass. "A year ago, I was pregnant for real. 8 weeks. We hadn't told anyone yet. We were waiting for the first trimester to pass." Her voice was flat, emotionless. "I miscarried on a Tuesday. Alaric was in London for work. I was alone." "Colette?" I moved toward her instinct, overriding caution. "Why didn't you call me?" "Because you had just announced your promotion at the counseling center. Everyone was so proud of you." She shrugged. "I didn't want to steal your moment." The familiar guilt twisted in my gut, the constant push-pull of our friendship, where her needs and mine perpetually competed for oxygen. "After the miscarriage, I fell apart," she continued. "But secretly. No one knew except Alaric and my doctor, and then I stopped accepting it. I started talking to the baby like she was still there, buying things, planning." Colette's hands fluttered to her still flat stomach. "Alaric was worried, but he went along with it at first. He thought it was grief." "When did it become this?" I gestured vaguely at her at the situation we were now in. She sighed. 3 months ago, I was supposed to speak at a maternal health fundraiser for my nonprofit, you know. But I had a panic attack before going on stage. Couldn't breathe, couldn't think. "I remember," I said, realizing. "You said you had food poisoning, another lie." She smiled sadly. "Alaric found me hyperventilating in the bathroom. I kept saying I couldn't face them. Couldn't tell them I'd failed. And then he said, 'What if you didn't have to?' My blood ran cold. He suggested you fake the pregnancy." "Not exactly. He suggested I could say I was newly pregnant just to get through the event. We'd announce a loss later after I'd had time to process privately." Colette's eyes met mine hollow. "But it felt so good, Sarah. The congratulations, the attention, the way people looked at me like I was special again." "So you kept going." "It snowballed. One event became another, a small bump became a bigger one, and then the donations started coming in." I frowned. "Donations?" Colette stood abruptly, moving to a desk in the corner. She returned with a folder full of papers. "Here," she said, spreading them on the coffee table. "See for yourself." The documents showed donations, substantial ones from various businesses and individuals, all to Colette's nonprofit. New Beginnings Maternal Care. "The foundation is real," she explained. "The work we do is real. We provide prenatal care to women in underserved communities. What isn't real is..." She trailed off. "You," I finished. "Your pregnancy." She nodded, eyes downcast. "I don't understand. Why would your pregnancy affect donations to your nonprofit?" "Because of who the donors are." Colette shuffled through the papers, pulling out several checks with familiar names. The Graves Foundation, the Williams Trust, Hampton Healthcare Services. They all have one thing in common. I scanned the names, recognition dawning. They all lost children or grandchildren or siblings. They donate to maternal health care because of personal tragedy. Colette's voice hardened slightly. "And they connect with me because they think I understand their fear. The fear of losing a child." The calculation of it all stunned me. "So the baby shower was a fundraiser, essentially." "Every gift, every decoration, all donated by companies that support New Beginnings. They get tax write-offs and publicity. We get supplies for our clinics." My mind raced to process this information. It was manipulative, certainly deceptive, absolutely, but criminal, I wasn't sure. "Colette, this is..." My phone buzzed in my pocket. A text from Bennett. "The obstetrician just emailed me. He says he filed a fraud report. My heart sank. I looked up at Colette, who was watching me intently. Bad news? She asked, her voice tight with apprehension. I hesitated, then turned my phone screen toward her. She read the message, her face draining of color. Who else knows? I asked quietly. Just Alaric and Murad. She figured out last month. Colette's composure cracked. Sarah, I can't go to jail. The foundation will collapse. All those women we help, they'll have nothing. You should have thought of that before you started this performance. I know, tears spilled down her cheeks. I know it was wrong, but I'll make it right. Once the final donation from Graves clears, it's for a new ultrasound machine for a mobile unit. I'll announce that I lost the baby. There'll be sympathy, not suspicion. No one will question it. The coldness of her planning chilled me. This wasn't grief or delusion speaking. This was calculation. And what about all the people who care about you, who've been worried about you, shopping for you, planning for you? What about their feelings? They'll recover, she said dismissively. People always do. I'm not sure I will, I admitted, my voice flat. Something shifted in Colette's expression, a flash of the girl I'd grown up with, vulnerable and real. I need you, Sarah. You're the only person who won't abandon me over this. The only one who will understand. The weight of 20 years of friendship pressed down on me, the sleepovers, the graduations, the weddings, the secrets shared and promises made. The times she'd been there for me and the times she hadn't. I'll think about it, I said, finally gathering my purse. But Colette, this has to stop today. She nodded, desperation in her eyes. Anything you want, just don't tell anyone else, please. As I drove away, the cabin growing smaller in my rearview mirror, I felt hollow. The Colette I thought I knew had disappeared, replaced by someone I barely recognized. On the highway, my phone rang through the car speakers. Bennett, you were right, I said before he could speak. About everything. Are you okay? His concern warmed the chill that had settled in my chest. No, I admitted. I'm really not. Come home, he said softly. We'll figure this out together. But as I drove, a nagging question persisted. Something about the donation from Graves that Colette had mentioned. The name was familiar beyond just seeing it on the donor list. I took the next exit and pulled into a coffee shop parking lot, searching my phone contacts. There it was, Penelope Graves, the stern widow I'd met at a charity gala last year. She'd taken an interest in my counseling work with grieving parents. Before I could second-guess myself, I dialed her number. Mrs. Graves, this is Sarah Walker. We met at the Bright Futures Gala. I swallowed hard. I was wondering if I could ask you about a donation you made to New Beginnings Maternal Care. 30 minutes later, I sat stunned in my car, Mrs. Graves' words echoing in my ears. Colette had promised the baby would be named after her late husband Edward, for a boy Edwina, for a girl. She said it would be a living memorial to him, since the baby's father, what was his name? Alaric, had agreed to it. This wasn't just faking a pregnancy. It wasn't just misleading donors. It was strategic emotional manipulation of grieving families. And suddenly I knew I couldn't protect Colette anymore. The post appeared on a local community forum 3 days later. Fraud alert, local nonprofit director, faking pregnancy to secure donations. I didn't write it, neither did Bennett, but the damage was done. Within hours, the story spread through our small town like wildfire. Screenshots of the post circulated on social media. Local news picked it up. Colette's phone went straight to voicemail. Alaric deleted his accounts. Bennett was called in to speak with the hospital administration, as was Dr. Harmon, the obstetrician who'd been at the baby shower. Both were asked to provide statements about what they'd observed. I didn't say anything specific. Bennett assured me that evening, loosening his tie as he collapsed onto our couch. Just confirmed that as a medical professional, I had concerns about the authenticity of her condition. This is a nightmare, I murmured, scrolling through the endless comments online. People we'd known for years were expressing shock, disgust, anger. Some defended Colette, suggesting mental illness. Others called for criminal charges. How did this get out? Bennett asked. You didn't tell anyone but me, right, and Mrs. Graves. I admitted, but she wouldn't have posted this. She was horrified, embarrassed. Someone else at the shower must have had suspicions. Or maybe it was Murad. Whoever it was, the result was the same. Colette's carefully constructed world was imploding, and I was watching it happen from a distance. The letter arrived the next day, hand-delivered to our mailbox. I recognized Colette's elegant handwriting immediately. Sarah, I know what you did. I trusted you with my truth, and you betrayed me just like everyone else eventually does. Don't bother denying it. You were always jealous of my life, my marriage, my success. You pretend to be supportive, but deep down, you've been waiting for me to fail. Well, congratulations. You've destroyed everything I built. I hope you're satisfied. Colette. No apology, no acknowledgement of her deception. Just blame shifted squarely onto my shoulders. I crumpled the letter, a memory surfacing from our junior year of high school. Colette fainting dramatically in the cafeteria after her boyfriend broke up with her. The ensuing chaos. The ambulance called the week of concerned attention that followed. And later, her confession to me, I just needed everyone to see how much he hurt me. I'd excused it then. I'd excused so many things over the years. The borrowed clothes never returned. The boyfriends she'd flirted with. The plans canceled when better options came along, always with that same charming smile that made it impossible to stay angry. The doorbell rang, startling me from my thoughts. Sierra stood on our porch, her artistic bohemian style replaced by jeans and a simple t-shirt. She looked exhausted. "Can I come in?" she asked, her voice small. I nodded, leading her to the kitchen where I poured us both coffee. "I feel like such an idiot," she said after a long silence. "I lent her $3,000. My head snapped up. "What?" Sierra nodded, shame coloring her cheeks. "For the nursery. She said it was temporary, that a big design commission was coming through, but she needed to pay the contractor right away to secure the slot." "Oh, Sierra. I know, but she's always paid me back before, and she was so excited about making everything perfect for the baby." Sierra's eyes filled with tears. "There is no baby, is there?" "No," I confirmed gently. "There isn't. Was there ever?" "A year ago, she miscarried early." Sierra absorbed this, nodding slowly. "That makes more sense than whatever this is. Did she approach anyone else for money?" "Opal, maybe they had lunch a few weeks ago. Colette was pretty focused on her afterward." I made a mental note to call Opal. If Colette had been systematically targeting our friend group for loans, this was worse than I'd imagined. After Sierra left, I did exactly that. Opal answered on the first ring, her therapist voice in full effect. "I've been expecting your call," she said. "You want to know if she asked me for money too?" "Did she?" "Not directly, but she talked a lot about her foundation's work, how they needed a mental health component, how perfect I would be to consult." Opal sighed. "I offered to volunteer my time." She seemed disappointed. "You saw through it." "Professional hazard. I notice when someone's performing rather than being." Opal paused. "In my professional opinion, Sarah Colette shows traits consistent with Munchausen syndrome. Isn't that when people fake illnesses for attention?" "Yes, but in this case, it's almost like Munchausen by proxy, except the proxy is her own identity as a mother. She's created a narrative where she gets sympathy, attention, and now financial gain, all centered around a pregnancy that doesn't exist." I closed my eyes, overwhelmed. What happens to someone like that? Without intervention, the lies get bigger, the stakes get higher, and eventually it all falls apart. Opal's voice softened. "Has anyone heard from her?" "Not since the story broke. She sent me a letter blaming me for everything." Classic deflection. She can't face her own culpability. After we hung up, I sat in silence processing. My phone buzzed again. Gage, Colette's brother. "Sarah." His voice was ragged when I answered. "Have you heard from Colette?" "No. Have you?" "Not since yesterday. She called me crying. I couldn't understand most of it, but..." He paused, gathering himself. "I knew something was wrong. For months I knew, but I didn't have proof, and Mom and Dad wouldn't listen." "It's not your fault, Gage." "Isn't it? She's my sister. I should have pushed harder." His voice broke. "The police are involved now. Someone filed fraud charges. Multiple donors, apparently. And Sarah? She's gone. Cleaned out her accounts this morning and disappeared." I gripped the phone tighter. "What about Alaric?" "He says she left him too, but he seems more angry than worried, which tells me everything I need to know about their marriage." After we hung up, I called Bennett at the hospital. "Colette's missing," I said without preamble. His voice went low, serious. "Missing how?" "Disappeared, accounts emptied, no one's heard from her." A long pause. "She might come to you," he said finally. "Why would she?" "She blames me for exposing her." "Because you're her constant, her emotional safety net. Even when she's pushing you away, she's really pulling you closer." Bennett's words haunted me as evening fell. I paced our house, jumping at every sound, peering through windows at the slightest movement. The rain started around 9 p.m., a gentle patter that grew into a downpour by midnight. Bennett had been called in for an emergency surgery, leaving me alone with my thoughts and fears. I had just decided to try to sleep when a soft knock came at the door. I froze, listening. It came again, not demanding, barely audible above the rain. I approached cautiously, peering through the peephole. Colette stood on our porch, soaked to the skin, hair plastered to her face. No makeup, no designer clothes. Just Colette, broken and dripping on our welcome mat. I opened the door. She didn't speak, didn't move, just stared at me with empty eyes. Then, like a puppet with cut strings, she collapsed forward into my arms. Her body felt small, fragile as I caught her. For a woman who'd been portraying a 7-month pregnancy, she seemed to have wasted away to almost nothing. I could feel her ribs through her sodden shirt as I half-carried her inside. I settled her on the couch, wrapping her in a throw blanket. She stared straight ahead, unresponsive. I made tea. She didn't drink. I asked questions. She didn't answer. Finally, I just sat beside her in silence, watching the rain streak down our windows. After what felt like hours, she spoke one sentence, barely a whisper. "Tell me what to do. I'll do it." I looked at her, this stranger wearing my best friend's face, and felt nothing but exhaustion. Bennett found us like that when he returned home at dawn. Colette curled into a ball on our couch, me sitting vigil in the armchair across from her. One look at his face told me he'd heard the news. "They've issued a warrant," he said quietly, leading me into the kitchen. "Fraud, multiple counts. The Graves Foundation is pressing charges." I glanced back at Colette's sleeping form. She has nothing left. No money, no home, no reputation. "That's not our problem." Bennett's voice was firm, but not unkind. "Sarah, she manipulated grieving families. She took advantage of people's pain. She stole money under false pretenses. I know, she needs to face consequences, and professional help." "I know that too." Bennett sighed, running a hand through his hair. "She can't stay here. I want her out by noon." I nodded, unable to argue. He was right. Harboring Colette now would make us complicit in whatever came next. After he left for his shift, I made coffee and toast, setting a plate in front of Colette, who had finally stirred. "Bennett wants you gone by noon," I said, not bothering to soften the blow. She nodded, picking at the toast without eating it. "Where will I go?" "You could turn yourself in, start taking responsibility." A bitter laugh escaped her. "They'll put me in jail." "Maybe, maybe not, but running will only make it worse." She looked up at me, a spark of the old Colette in her eyes. "A documentary producer called me yesterday, wants to interview us both. Deception and mental illness in the social media age, offered good money." "You can't be serious." "Why not? At least I'd control the narrative." I stared at her, incredulous. Even now, she was thinking about the performance, the audience, the attention. "Colette, this isn't a PR problem. It's not something you can spin or repackage. You lied to everyone who loves you. You exploited people's grief for money." "For the foundation," she corrected automatically. "Which you controlled, which enhanced your reputation, which gave you access to powerful people." I leaned forward, forcing her to meet my eyes. "Stop lying to yourself if no one else." Something cracked in her expression. "What do you want from me? Sarah Tear's confession? Self-flagellation? Will that make you feel better about abandoning me when I need you most?" "This isn't about me. It's always been about you." Her voice rose, color flooding her pale cheeks. Perfect Sarah with her perfect husband and perfect career and perfect moral compass. Never a mistake, never a misstep. Do you have any idea what it's like to stand in your shadow year after year? "I've made plenty of mistakes," I said quietly. "Including letting this friendship become so unbalanced that you think you can manipulate me the way you do everyone else." "I never manipulated you." "Didn't you? The late-night crisis calls. The emergencies that always seemed to happen when I had something important going on. The constant need for reassurance and validation." She flinched as if I'd struck her. "That's what friends do. They show up for each other." "Friends, not emotional vampires." We stared at each other across the kitchen table, 20 years of friendship stretching between us like a chasm. "I think there's something wrong with me," she whispered finally. "I can't tell where the line is anymore between what's real and what's performance." "I know," I said, softening despite myself. "That's why you need help, Colette. Real help." She was silent for a long moment. Then, "I just wanted to be special again." Before I could respond, a sharp knock came at the door. Through the window, I could see a police cruiser in our driveway. Colette's eyes widened in panic. She bolted from her chair, heading for the back door. I caught her arm. "Don't," I pleaded. "It will only be worse if you run." "Let me go." She twisted in my grip, desperate. "Sarah, please, I can't go to jail. I can't." In that moment, I had to choose the friend I'd known forever, or the truth I couldn't ignore. The loyalty that had defined most of my life, or the moral clarity that had emerged from its ashes. "I'll speak for you," I said, finally releasing her arm. "I'll tell them you came here voluntarily, that you're cooperative. It might help." She sagged against the wall, defeated. "You really think I'm a monster, don't you?" "No," I shook my head. "I think you're lost and I can't find you anymore." The next hours passed in a blur. Statements given. Charges read. Colette, hollow-eyed, being led to a police car. My promise to testify about what I knew, a partial account that omitted certain details that would have made things worse for her. A half-truth for a half-life. Weeks turned to months. Colette accepted a plea deal, probation restitution community service, and mandatory psychiatric treatment. The foundation was dissolved, its remaining assets transferred to legitimate maternal health organizations. I testified as promised, walking the line between honesty and mercy. I described the miscarriage, the grief that had spiraled into delusion, the genuine work the foundation had done despite its fraudulent fundraising. I didn't mention the calculated way she'd targeted specific donors, or the journal entries that suggested the deception had been planned rather than impulsive. Some would call it perjury by omission. I called it the last act of friendship I could offer. 6 months after the baby shower that had started it all, a letter arrived from the psychiatric facility where Colette was receiving inpatient care. Sarah, they tell me writing this is part of my recovery. Acknowledging the harm I've caused. Accepting responsibility. Expressing genuine remorse rather than performative apology. I'm not sure I know the difference yet. I'm not sure I know who I am when no one is watching. But I do know this. You saved me from myself, not the way a friend would looking away making excuses. The way a sister would hard truth and harder love. I don't expect forgiveness. I don't even expect a response. But I needed you to know that in the wreckage of everything I destroyed, there is one thing I finally understand, the difference between being seen and being known. Colette, I folded the letter carefully and placed it in a memory box in our closet, alongside photos from our childhood friendship bracelets and a piece of the pale blue shawl I'd invented as an excuse to investigate her house. Then I drove to the baby shower venue, a converted barn, now empty and quiet in the autumn light. I sat alone on the steps watching leaves spiral down from nearby trees, thinking about all the invisible things we choose not to see in those we love. She taught me that some lies are told for love, but others are told because someone loved the attention more than the truth. Have you ever ignored the warning signs in a friendship, choosing comfortable lies over painful truths? If this story resonated with you, hit the like button and subscribe for more tales that explore the darker side of the relationships we think we know.